Story number 1. At 1:43 in the morning, the doorbell rang. I was by myself. My grandma lived in the next state over, and my parents had traveled there to see her. At 17, I was obstinate enough to insist on being left alone at home. What could possibly go wrong? I had stated. Once more, the doorbell rang. I remained motionless. The suburbs were where we resided. Peaceful neighborhood. At this hour, there is no need for someone to be on our porch. The lengthy, impatient third ring rang. My heart was starting to race as I sat up in bed. I looked at my phone. No calls were missed. Do not text. I picked up my old aluminum Little League bat off the corner. I slipped down the corridor. Felt like every floorboard was louder than normal. I could see the porch light's brightness at the end of the corridor. A shadow passed over it, refusing to leave, pacing back and forth. It was as if someone was debating whether to knock again. Then there was quiet. With my heart pounding in my ears, I arrived at the front door. I refrained from opening it. Through the peephole I peered. Nobody. Nothing. Only the vacant porch, illuminated by the gentle amber glow. After a full minute of waiting, I moved away. I heard it as I turned to face the kitchen. Footsteps. Not outdoors. Inside. From the corridor upstairs from which I had just emerged. Slow. Dragging. One step at a time. I was still. Nobody ought to be up there. I turned, sprinted to the kitchen, got my phone, and closed the back door. No signal. No bars, not a weak signal. No assistance. It was the first time the small X over the bars had appeared. Then the laughter broke out. From the upper floor. Brief. Damp. There was no sound of laughter. It seemed as though someone was attempting to mimic laughter. As if it had never been done before. Then there was a movement coming down the stairs. It was not moving. Crawled. I could hear the board being scratched by nails. Slow. Purposeful. I clutched the bat as if it may really save my life as I retreated into the living room. At the bottom of the steps, the movement came to a stop. Once more silence. Then, "You neglected to secure the other door." The voice was coming from the closet in the hallway. Next to me. After swinging the bat, I ran to the front door. It is still locked. The deadbolt jammed. I tugged and yanked until something cold, more like wet rubber than skin, touched my back. The closet door opened on its own when I turned just in time. It was pitch dark inside. No coats, no footwear, only a gap. Tunnel. Descending. Stairs of uneven stone descend. There has never been a tunnel like that. I shuddered and retreated. The lights in the house then started to go out one by one. Not fluttering. Click, click, click. Every room. One by one. It was coming toward me from the back of the house. I raced upstairs, yelled, locked myself in the bathroom, and waited while sitting in the bathtub with the bat. It was quiet until 4:12 a.m. The lights then turned back on. It buzzed on my phone. 10 fresh messages. All from unknown numbers. Everyone made the same statement. Remain inside the house. The other room still contains it. I bided my time until dawn. In the daylight, the front door opened perfectly. Shaking and pallid, I hurried to my neighbor's house and pleaded with them to contact my parents. The tunnel in the closet was gone by the time the police and I returned later that day. Only jackets, shoes, dust. However, there was one novel aspect. One word was deeply engraved on a little piece of wood that was nailed to the inside of the door in a language that none of us could understand. Remember. I slept in my parents' room that night, all the lights on. At precisely 1:43 in the morning, the lights went out, and I heard the voice again from the other room. It muttered, "You are at home now. Forever." Story number 2. Around midnight, the storm began. It is the kind of storm that jars your bones, with lightning flashing like a strobe and thunder so loud it trembles picture frames. I was already tense. I had insisted on sticking behind as my folks left for a weekend getaway. I enjoyed being alone in the house. The quiet. The liberty. This silence, however, felt odd. Wrapped under a blanket, I was upstairs in my bedroom, using my laptop to watch a scary movie. Actually, half watching. I kept hearing tiny creaks in my ears, which I could have easily attributed to an ancient house and strong winds. Nevertheless, with my heart pounding, I repeatedly halted the film in an attempt to capture a sound that always appeared to vanish as soon as I concentrated. Then someone knocked. Not in front of the door. Not in a window. From within the house. 3 gentle taps. From the lower level. I went cold. Earlier, I had not locked the basement door. Stupid. I held my breath and muted the laptop. There was another knock. A bit more volume. Like a person tapping wood with their knuckles. I switched on the flashlight and reached for my phone. I glanced down the hallway and crept across the room. Nothing. I downed the steps slowly. I had the impression that someone was observing me with every creak of the stairs. Now the house felt too quiet. The wind had ceased too. When I got to the bottom, I turned to face the kitchen. The door to the basement was open. Without a doubt, I had closed it sooner. Closed, perhaps, but not locked. Darkness poured out of it as it hung open now, yawning like a mouth. I gazed. Then there was another knock. Directly behind me. I almost dropped the flashlight because I spun so quickly. However, nobody was present. Only the living room, dark and motionless. Then a fresh sound. Breathing. Coming from the vent located directly above the stairs in the basement. Not a machine. Not pliable. Human and rash. Inside the walls there was a breathing thing. I bolted upstairs. Shut my bedroom door after slamming it. My heart was thumping violently. I listened while sitting on the bed. A minute went by. Next, 5. Nothing. I lay asleep, telling myself that everything had been in my head. However, then, I sensed that the mattress was under strain. As if someone's hand had touched the bed's foot. I shot to my feet. There is nobody there. Then I sensed it once more. From below, there was a movement beneath my bed. Not quickly. Slow. As though it were slithering. Or crawling. To shine the spotlight underneath, I got out of bed and knelt down. However, before I could, from beneath the bed came a hushed voice. I see you. I scurried back. Strike the wall. I dropped my phone. It moved on the floor. The beam of the flashlight was pointed beneath the bed. A face was present. Not human. Pale and gray with big eyes, a mouth that is too big, bleeding and split lips, and a smile. It watched me, pressing up against the slats. The whisper then resurfaced. You are mine now. The bed rose. I swear to God, it lifted 3 or 4 feet off the ground on its own, hanging in midair as if it were supported by someone beneath. Then it collapsed. The lights in the house went out. Every bulb, gone in a single blink. I ran from the room, down the hall into the guest bedroom, slammed the door and didn't move for hours. When morning came, I emerged. Everything was in its place. Basement door closed. No sign of intrusion. No blood. No face. But in my room, under the bed, I found a message scratched into the floorboards. Under your skin next. That night, I didn't stay home. I haven't since. But every once in a while, I get a phone call. No number. Just silence. And faint breathing. And when I whisper, "Who is this?" the voice replies, "I'm already here." Story number 3. I discovered the attic window was open on the 3rd night I was home by myself. Never do I go up there. It is locked all the time. Dusty. Claustrophobic. However, I felt a chilly breeze that evening as I passed the corridor after brushing my teeth and shutting off the lights. The narrow pull-down ladder was just wide enough for my stomach to turn when I looked up. I stood motionless, listening to the slight sound of the wind rushing through while I gazed up into the pitch-black aperture. For years, the window had been closed. I persuaded myself that it might have been the wind. The latch might have broken. However, I heard something fall up there as I turned to go. A dragging, sluggish sound, like a big object being dragged across the hardwood floor of the attic. I ought to have given someone a call. I ought to have gone out of the house. Instead, with a flashlight trembling in my hand, I picked up a broom and began to slowly ascend the ladder. The scent of mold and dust filled the attic. Old boxes, picture frames, plastic bins, and a rocking chair. One that was not there before. were all illuminated by my beam as it sliced through the darkness. Once it rocked, then came to a standstill. With the broom in my hand like a weapon, I stepped into the attic floor. Through the broken window, its frame swaying and shaking, the wind murmured. After that, I noticed the footsteps, human, bare, extending from the window to the distant nook behind the antique clothing rack that had held my father's winter clothing. I walked over to them, gasping for air. Behind a wooden chest, the tracks came to a stop. There was a tall, slender figure, facing the corner, motionless. I said in a whisper, "Hello." The body shifted, failed to turn. It remained still, only a slight movement. I took a step back. Then it started talking, not in a whisper, not with a voice. It spoke to me in my mind. "You have no business being here." I ran after dropping the broom. Behind me, the ladder fell and closed by itself. I did not get any sleep that evening. I remained on the couch with a kitchen knife in my hand and the lights on. My folks were camping hours away and there was no reception when I texted them. I heard footsteps above me at 3:17 a.m., not going for a walk, pacing. The whispering followed. Not in English. I did not recognize anything. One last thump, then, as if something heavy had fallen. The following morning, I made myself get out of bed. Once more, the attic window was shut. However, there was an open chest in the corner. There was a mirror within. Not ours. I have never before seen it. Old and tall, the frame was stained by soot and age. And despite the attic being completely dry, a message was written in fog over the glass. "You witnessed it. It sees you now. Weeks have passed since then. Since then, I have not stayed at the residence." However, the mirror, when I returned with the police, it was not in the attic. Nothing out of the ordinary was discovered. Not a single footprint. No chest. No rocking chair. But occasionally I do see that reflection. Whilst dreaming, in contemplation, in corners all the time. And there is always something behind me. Story number 4. The flickering light in the hallway was the first sign. Once a little buzz and nothing else. I thought it was a loose light bulb and disregarded it. Later that night, however, I went by it once more and noticed that it flickered in a constant beat, almost like breathing. I felt a sharp chill run down my spine after staring at it for too long. The flickering light stopped. However, the ensuing quiet was so dense that it crushed against my ears. I had been left alone for the weekend by my parents. I was accustomed to it. I even relished the silence. But something felt odd that night. It seemed as though something was watching me from a place I could not see. Waiting. I shut all the windows. I looked in all the doors. I still felt like I was being watched. I heard the creak at 1:13 in the morning. It originated in the guest bedroom at the far end of the house. The one we never used. The one inside with the broken latch. I waited for a second sound while holding my breath. A sequel. A shuffling motion. A click. Then it arrived. There are 3 knocks. Slow. Measured. Not on the door but on the wall. I snatched up a flashlight and slipped into the corridor. The guest room's creaking persisted, but my bare feet made no sound on the hardwood floor. Not at random. As opposed to the home settling. It was pacing. Back and forth. Back and forth. I put my ear on the door. Silence. Then, continually knock. I quickly opened the door while scanning the room with my flashlight. Empty. The closet door, however, was 2 inches open. It had been closed for several months. I had no doubt about it. I moved in closer. The closet was completely dark and devoid of light, so dense that not even my flashlight's beam seemed to be able to penetrate it. The atmosphere changed, become colder. Then, from within the closet, I heard it whisper, "Is this also your home?" I went cold. Despite not being loud, the murmur crept through the atmosphere and into my bones. I took a step back. By itself, the closet door creaked open. I let the flashlight fall. A face, pale, stretched too wide, with deep black eyes and a mouth that hung open far too long, as if screaming without sound, was caught in the beam's madly spinning path. I ran. I cannot recall how I blocked the door or how I returned to my room. I did not sleep, though. I remained motionless. Around 2:40 in the morning, the pacing resumed outside my bedroom door. Then there was a knock. Not at the entrance. On my wall. Next, on the wall across from it. Next, in my own room in the closet. It ceased by dawn. At last, I opened the door and entered the corridor. The door to the guest room was shut once more. From the inside, locked. I did not notify my folks right away when they arrived home. However, my mother casually inquired, "Did you keep the hallway light on all night?" During dinner that evening. "No," I replied. It had flickered and I had switched it off. She scowled. "Because this morning it was on." Additionally, every drawer in the guest room was open. I was unable to talk. It was weeks before I slept in that house again. Upon my return, I discovered something new. A little square carved into the wood beneath the carpet in the guest room closet. Panel that is hidden. I forced it open. A void. The interior walls were scratched. Dozens. Hundreds. As if something or someone had been attempting to pry itself free. A message was etched deeply into the wood. Hardly readable but clearly visible. "I will never abandon you if you let me in." I have not gone to sleep with the lights off since that day. Even though I moved out years ago, I occasionally still hear the banging when I am in a new place. And 3 knocks as usual.